friend, let me ask you a question. Do you want to totally be a better role player?
Yeah, I do.
So do you sometimes feel ineffective in your role play?
Well, there are times.
Well then, just dial 555-2368. Do other players sometimes laugh at your feeble role-playing attempts? Don't worry about it, my friend, because we've got the program for you and you. All you have to do while the supplies last, limited time only, dial 555-2368 so you can grab your copy of 7 Habits of Highly Effective Role Players today. Nerdarchy Dave here from Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds, and today I'm hanging out with this nerd.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Hey, do you want practical D&D content you can drop right into your game?
If the answer is yes, then don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to tune to that notification bell so you don't miss a single video.
We're kind of spoofing off the idea of seven habits for highly effective people here, but we're going to take that and kind of turn it around into tools that you can actually use for role-playing and playing Dungeons & Dragons and becoming better at gaming in general.
All right, so we're gonna break this down. We're gonna look at all 7, tips, how they apply to D&D, and kind of get into some of the things where we've already used or seen how that could be helpful in a D&D game.
So habit number 1, be proactive.
All right, so this is one of those things where I'm certain at your table, whether you're the GM, whether you're the player, you've heard the phrase, all right, well, what are you going to do? What do you want to do? This is a good tool as a GM, but if you're a player, you don't need to wait for the GM to ask. You should have a list of ideas of things that your character wants to do. Do you have character goals? Do you have things that you want to see happen, make happen, whether it be, just go down and talk to that barmaid and, see if you can get a date, or whether it's, okay, I want to go find this ancient dwarven relic and restore power and fame to my family line. These things are quests, great and small, and if you have these things, then you are going to be a better D&D player.
Yeah, it's real simple. Don't wait for your DM to drop plots on you. Go out there and look for the hooks and create your own.
Tip number 2 is begin with the end in mind. How is this going to apply to D&D, Dave?
All right. At first, it doesn't maybe seem like it, but listen, hear me out. It comes down to 2 things. And they're both the same thing, essentially. And that's have goals. Have goals for your character and have goals as a player. And now, sometimes this can be a little bit confusing for people to separate their player goals and their character goals. But a good example of that is, say you're a warlock who sold his soul, and then you decide it's a bad deal. Well, you picked the warlock class for a reason, because you wanted to play freaking warlock. So does getting your soul back mean you can't be a warlock anymore? So the player may not actually want their soul back, but I think the character really would.
There's a lot of different things that are going to align here. There's sometimes, as a player, it is amazing for your character to go out in glory, to have an honorable death, to have something where your death is going to be so meaningful that, players at the table or, that story is going to become legend amongst your kith and kin. So no character is ever going to be like, I want to die. But as a player, that could be a cool thing. And I've seen it happen a multitude of times over the decades of gaming. So, yeah, having those things, I know there's definitely some tie-in between being proactive and, having those goals. But, when you start with where you might want to be in the end, that gives you the idea that you have a direction, that you know where you want to go. Now, be prepared that things might change. The story of, my current long-term character in Dave's game has definitely changed and skewed over the course of the game as things unfold. But it's definitely, I had an idea of where I wanted him to go. And, you got to adapt.
So habit number 3 is put first things first.
All right, so how is this applying to D&D, Dave?
All right, so really what this means for your D&D character and for you as a player is just be the character, live in that character. Try and think and experience the world through that character's eyes. Try and forget for just a moment that you're playing a game, that, Dungeons & Dragons is a role-playing game, but instead think of the role of your character. How do they interact with the world around them? How do they interact with the NPCs and other player characters in the game? Be the character.
I know that there are times that as a role player, you really don't want to get into, the nitty gritty of, oh, well, how are you feeling today? What's going on? But there is so much more attachment, so much more interactivity when you get into the actual building of relationships, you know, into the actual characters. So when you begin developing connections, then the strength of the role playing as a group is going to grow. And then if something detrimental happens to one of those players, the impact is going to be so much more.
Habit number 4 is going to be win-win. But you know what? Before we get into that, I've got another win-win for you. And that's when it comes to what dice company you select.
Is that Easy Roller Dice?
It absolutely is. Easy Roller Dice, whether it's your first set of dice or your 1 millionth set of dice, Easy Roller Dice for all your dice rolling needs. Down in the description, you can find a link to Easy Roller Dice /Nerdarchy, as well as a one-time coupon code for a whopping 20% off.
Go get your Easy Roller Dice.
Absolutely. It's a win-win for you and your gaming group. Win-win, what does that mean? Let's talk about that a little bit.
All right, so I guess this is going to really apply to, strengthening and, building the actual adventuring party, the gaming group. And there's so many times I've seen, people or players fight over, party loot and party treasure. I want that. No, I want that. And, when you've got two characters that are very themed the same, it's very easy that they both want the +1 longsword when it's the first one. But, we have to understand that there are times that what's good for the group is good for the individual. So, sometimes it's good to just like, you know what? You have this sword, I'll get the next one.
I would totally go in a different direction as well, and I think about role-playing and inviting your fellow players to sharing the limelight, sharing the role-play. Critical Role does this really well. Not only do they, focus on their characters' goals and objectives and what they want, but they're really good at bringing the other players and their characters into it with them. So they're sharing the limelight. This creates stronger dynamics in the party, more interesting dynamics in the party, and that's how you're going to get a win-win for everyone involved.
Absolutely. All right, so number 5 is going to be seek first to understand, then be understood. And I think this dovetails, nicely into what you were just talking about, where you're reaching out to other players to pull them in. And if you're getting others to talk first, you're sharing the limelight. You're letting everyone else have their day in the sun. You've got the ability to let them talk, and your turn will come as well.
Yeah, number 4 and number 5, they blend together really nicely. And they're just going to help synergize the party both in and outside of the game.
If you've got the ability to, as a D&D player, converse and settle things, nicely, it's going to work at your table, whether you're talking in character or out.
So number 6, the habit number 6 is synergizing. And really what this is about everything we've kind of talked about coming together and your party being able to work together. And in game terms, this might be, using abilities that work well from different class features so that you can kind of create feasible tactics that just overall create greater results than they would by themselves. For example, if players have the ability to give other players actions, like the Order Cleric does, Battle Master can do it. Mastermind can do it. Well, anytime you can give your rogue another opportunity to make an attack and make another sneak attack, that's going to be a huge win-win. Or maybe instead of casting haste on yourself, you're better off casting it on other party members. Maybe you're a sorcerer and you can twin that haste, and that's going to be so much more effective on your barbarian and your paladin than it would be on yourself.
Absolutely. There's a lot of ways that mechanically you can take a step back from role playing and look at how characters will work together. I know in the one game that I'm playing, there's actually 2 characters playing a barbarian Path of the Ancients, or Path of the Ancestral Guardian. We always trim it down because it's long. But when the 2 of them fight the same thing, regardless of what that creature attacks, it's going to do so with disadvantage. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's just looking for those little things. Think of the first Avengers movie when Captain America's giving orders to everyone. That's kind of you want somebody in your party to be doing that.
Absolutely.
So habit number 7, Sharpening the Saw. And really, Sharpening the Saw is about everything coming together and not overdoing anything. It's about downtime, really, inside of the game as well as outside of the game.
Yeah, now, we're looking at this one, and off camera, we were like, all right, how is this going to truly apply? And we realized that, we've spent, time where we've gamed numerous days in a row, and we know people who stream, every day. And, when you've got a job and, house, the wife, the kids, the whole thing, it's really hard to manage time. But to pull away sometimes, it will strengthen your love for what's there. And if you make sure that you've got the downtime both in the game and out of the game, I honestly think you'll be a better role player.
I totally agree. And as far as the downtime in the game, by spending some downtime in games and not always just be adventure, 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 it makes your character more of a real person.
You've got the ability that when you actually have time to digest the information, you've as a player character, you've got the ability to really be like, wow, what did we just do? You've heard the tales of people who get into a car accident and the stress of it doesn't affect them until, hours or days later, and they're like, holy crap, what did I just go through? The same thing can be applied to a D&D game. All right, you've survived combat, you killed the demon lord, blah, 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 blah. All right, now you're back home. What are you going to do? Oh, I'm going to go on the next quest. Oh, not yet. And as you begin settling into a regular routine, the realization of, holy crap, this quest that I went on for years, that we finally did this thing, is going to impact the rest of this campaign world, for, generations or eons.
There you go. There you have it. 7 habits for highly successful D&D players. Let us know if you find these helpful for becoming a better D&D player. Also, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons, because without them, none of this would be possible. They're such a great help. If you'd like to become a patron and support us, go check it out. There's a link in the description. We're giving away products that we make for the game every month. Eventually they end up on our store, but over on Patreon, they get there sooner, early, and for less. We also have some other great benefits over there, so take a look. And while we're thanking people, we might as well thank Easy Roller Dice, our sponsor. They also help make this possible. Down in the description, you're going to find links to Easy Roller Dice as well as the Patreon. Go check them out.
All right, so while you're down there, don't forget to comment, like, share, and subscribe.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.